What's up, YouTube? This is Big Mike. This should be a fun question here on this Sunday. Got some playoff games in store. What would be your all-time starting five in NBA history? Um, I know what mine would be. At center, I'd have Will Chamberlain, the most dominant NBA player of all time, seven-time NBA scoring champion. I think he was a 11-time rebounding champion, all-time record for points in the game, 100 points. I think his most impressive record is most rebounds in the game, 55. You don't have teams that get that many rebounds generally. Led the NBA in assists one time. Just a remarkable player. Never fouled out in the NBA game. What else is notable about him? I think he still holds something like 70 odd NBA records or something like that. I think if blocks were recorded during his era, he'd probably be either the all-time leader in blocks or he'd be second behind Russell, one of the two. Reportedly recorded 26 blocks in an NBA game. I think it was against the Detroit Pistons. Just a phenomenal player, man. The strongest player in NBA history. At power forward, I have a guy playing out of position. Okay, at power forward, I would have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar playing at power forward. He had a finesse game. He was 7'2", 225. Hell, I figure if Ralph Sampson could play power forward, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar could do the same. All-time leading NBA scorer, had the most unstoppable shot in NBA history. Very durable player. Played for 20 seasons. Was still a dominant force until probably the last 2 years of his career, I'd say. He was still a very effective, if not dominant force until about the 87 season. Just a tremendous player. Really had no real weaknesses per se. At small forward, I'd have Larry Bird. I know some people might have LeBron, but I have Larry Bird. Yes, his career ended somewhat on a down note, but from 1979 to about 1988, he was almost without par as far as NBA excellence. Just a tremendous player. Argument can be made that he's still the greatest shooter we've ever seen. And Larry Bird was saying that he thought he was a better shooter in college because before he mangled his finger, and I believe it was a softball game in the early to mid 80s or so, something like that. No. I think it was during the early 80s or something like that, late 70s when he hurt his finger. I forgot. Back injuries derailed him, but he was tremendous in an era in the 1980s where there were so many dominant small forwards. Mark Aguirre, Alex Inglis, Adrian Dantley, George Gervin. Well, Gervin plays shooting guard, but he could play small forward too. Speaking of Spurs, Mike Mitchell is small forward. Larry Kanan. What's the guy named? Marcus Johnson. Bernard King, if I haven't mentioned him. Almost every team had a dominant small forward. Kelly Tripucka. Kiki Vandeweghe. I mean, that was just James Worthy. Every team had a dominant, the 80s just was like the era for dominant small forwards, man. Every team had a dominant or good small forward. I'm telling you. Trying to gaze in my mind other guys. Larry Nance. Who am I forget? Dominique Wilkins. How the hell could I not bring him up? I'm telling you, man, just the 80s was crazy. You had all these guys that Larry Bird was going against night in and night out, and he was the creme de la creme of that position. The guy was phenomenal. Xavier McDaniel. But anyway, at shooting guard, who else? Michael Jordan, the greatest. All right, the greatest player of all time. 10-time NBA scoring champion, 5-time MVP, 6-time NBA champion, 9 times all-defensive player. From 1987 to about 1992, the guy was in his absolute prime. Just crazy athleticism, tremendous talent. I never saw a guy that could do things that he can do on both ends of the court. And that's why I'm talking to Stephen Curry fans. He could do it on both ends of the court. And even when he came out of retirement in 95, though he wasn't still the same player, he still was he'd still be a top 15 all-time player if he just played at that level. And he was a far cry from the guy he was. At point guard, Magic Johnson, of course, the orchestrator of Showtime,